WISeKey has made a strategic investment in his company, Arago. Artificial intelligence, AI, it's essential for the transformation on the fourth industrial revolution. So it's an asset that WISeKey wanted to introduce into a platform. And today we're going to discuss how that happened. What are the major drivers for that integration? What are going to be the benefit for the individual companies, as obviously Arago and WISeKey, they are also joining effort through a joint venture, which is in the process of being established. Then we'll combine our technology for some very concrete applications. And we will also discuss about what are the advantages for enterprises to enter into what we call the AIoT, the artificial intelligence combined with IoT. This merge that basically will allow billions of objects, data to be sent to clouds, to be analyzed, and using artificial intelligence, being able to produce all kind of predictability analysis and all kind of information that will be essential for brands to improve their products and become more efficient. So we're going to run that as we do in Davos. Chris and I, we are very often together in panels in the World Economic Forum, in other places. So we're going to run that as a chat between both of us. You are free to submit questions to us through the Zoom question facility Q&A, and we will introduce those questions as we develop the subject. So Chris, nice to have you with us. We are about 100 people on the call. You have experts, you have financiers, you have shareholders, you have private equity groups. So it's a very interesting group of people that are with us today. Maybe just introducing your company, and I will do as well, and then we can develop the subject further. So first of all, welcome to the call, and it's a pleasure for me to have you here and be able to cooperate with you. So Chris, maybe my first question is Arago. You are one of the leading experts in the world in artificial intelligence. You are advisor to Chancellor Merkel in Germany as you are putting together the entire COVID response project. Can you explain us in detail what Arago is, what Arago does, and how you see this integration happening between IoT and artificial intelligence?
So Carlos, it's a pleasure to be with you here on the webinar, and I think we've got a very interesting crowd here, and I hope that we can answer a lot of questions and also show what the long discussions that we've had for years now come out to. So Arago essentially is a company that uses artificial intelligence to make decisions or to solve problems, and we out of that technology, we created a platform that automates business processes and from IT into the total business part. And that means in some very concrete examples, of course, the simplest application of this is simulate a system administrator and basically have your IT systems run by it. This then goes into have your SAP systems run by the artificial intelligence, and then it goes into actually doing business processes like credit line management or order to cash or supply chain management, or even managing a marketing campaign completely automated. And the idea is, of course, labor reduction, but also a much more consistent quality and a much faster time to react. And obviously, completely new things become possible by automating problem solving. For example, when you're automating campaign management in digital marketing, instead of having a campaign manager look at all the steps that are necessary to do the campaign once a day, which is roughly what they can do, you can actually do this every 5 minutes, meaning that and react completely dynamically, like not react along a certain set of rules or thresholds, but react really as an expert would, which will increase the throughput of, or the click-through of digital campaigns dramatically, like 20%. Right? These are the type of things that we do. We have been building the platform for a very long time. Started out with the research in 1995. Are commercial with this since 2009, and we have a lot of processing and a lot of data that we can build on, so we can today apply it even in enterprise scenarios where there normally is not so much data allocated.
Absolutely. So the way from my end side, I see this cooperation be so fundamental is that IoT companies and cybersecurity companies, then they are also like WISeKey producing microchips as we produce microchips. And those microchips are being installed now into 1.6 billion devices. So, you know, powered drones or BMWs or Mercedes, so all of those devices, and they are slowly integrating those microchips because those devices, those objects, those things, Internet of Things, are connecting now to clouds. And they are sending a lot of data. So the origin of the data and making sure that the data is authentic and comes from the right place and is not being counterfeited is essential for brands to know. They want to know real time how those objects are performing, and they want to have that data authenticated and encrypted between the transfer of the data from the object to the cloud. What I think is extraordinarily exciting is the possibility of processing that data, because that data has geolocation in many cases, it has behavior, in some cases it has risk analysis. So how do you optimize? And one of the things your Arago algorithm Hero does is the IT optimization process. Maybe can you explain to us what Hero does in terms of optimizing IT resources? Because I really believe that IoT is a stack, is a layer on the top of IT. You know, if a company has invested a lot of resources in IT, the next thing they want to do is to use those resources to migrate to IoT. So what is your views on that, Chris?
So, I mean, this is natural, right? For us, so far, artificial intelligence and the ability to automate and problem solve or also analyze and get insights from data has been very much limited to what's in the machine, right? So we can use a piece of software and have the machine automatically use it. We can have it run a ticketing system, take tickets from a ticketing system, then log into a console, do something on the console. All of that works just fine. And just as an example, last year we've processed about roughly 12 million tickets on IT operations. What becomes possible now with an AI and IoT integration is that the ability to have a identifiable secured connection has just expanded itself into the physical, right? That means that all of a sudden it becomes possible to remote control devices and extract data safely from devices to even get better or more optimal decision chains the next time you have to make a decision. So not only is it possible to deal with all that data that can come in through IoT safely, but it's also possible to actually actionate that data, no longer along standardized thresholds and fixed rules, but much more along the question of what do I actually want to get done? And this is what we do. We solve the problem in an individualized way. With our joint venture, we're able to expand this ability to automate tasks into the physical world. And that is a huge step for artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. And I will say another appeal of this relation, and one of the major reasons, obviously, that we invested in Arago and we are doing a joint venture with Arago, is the European aspect of this venture. You know, because you're a German company, we are a Swiss company, we also have WISeKey Semiconductor, which is a French company, very focused on microchips. We are very focused on cybersecurity, IoT, and you're very focused on AI, which I think they are the building pillars for what we call the platform effect. You know, the internet is being decomposed into platforms. This internet, this web that was developed in Geneva 30 years ago is now being converted into gated internet, you know, where you have to have a password either provided by Facebook or by Twitter or by one of those dominant platforms to enter into it. And once you are in, you are not anymore on the internet, you're in a private network. So those platforms are very dominant in the United States, and Europe doesn't have yet that platform effect. We are because we are not as organized as those markets are, and we don't have these scalability capabilities that those market has. We are small, and we need to be bigger, and we need to build that platform. So I really believe this combination of WISeKey, Arago, and in the future other partners that we will bring into the project, it will be the beginning of building that platform effect. I know that you are very European focused, and this is one of the reasons we know each other for many years, and we have been brainstorming always on the position on Europe on this space. Maybe you can give us more information, more light on that, because I think this is essential for both the investment community and the partnership community to understand. And we are trying to achieve that. And we really believe that Euro has a place in this global ecosystem of platforms. It's like in a war, you know, in a war you have your aircraft, and if you don't have a major aircraft, you are in trouble because your planes will not be able to take off and fight, right? So we need an internet aircraft in Europe, and we don't have it yet. So maybe your views on that will be interesting, because I think this is the essential point why those corporations make so much sense.
So, I mean, you're coming to a very important point here, and I think that everybody would like Europe to have a platform, simply because currently we see platforms in the United States and in China, but given the world order as it is today, and with the pandemic, the instabilities that are introduced, it is definitely sure or certain that a table with 3 legs, which could be the world with the US, China, and Europe, is a much more stable place than a table with 2 legs as we currently have it. So I think it's in everybody's best interest that Europe steps up to the platform economy, and this has not happened yet. And people like you and I have been spending a lot of time to put in the work that is necessary to ramp up such an endeavor. And why do I believe that especially the joint venture is important to this is because in Europe, we are very strong on the established industry side, right? We don't have the Silicon Valley or we don't have Shenzhen, but what we do have is all these fantastic market leaders in the established economy, which hold a lot of knowledge, and the ability to make that knowledge actionable and actually make it scalable, and not only in the technical or virtual world, but also in the physical world, that is unique to Europe. And it is very fitting that a platform to support this approach of automating the existing industry is a joint effort by European players, which would also make it much easier in terms of data protection, because we're all under those laws anyway, and we have built the platforms in a way that are data sparse and so on.
Absolutely. And if you really realize, if you decompose the platform technologies that are required to run platforms, you will realize that among both of us, we nearly have all of them, with obviously the need to scale them. But you need a cryptographic root key, which is not dominant. I mean, all the major cryptographic root keys on the internet are run by American companies. WISeKey is a Swiss cryptographic root key, has been there for now 22 years. It has a download base on 3.6 billion browsers being downloaded the cryptographic root key. It is a major dominant root key now. We have semiconductors, so we produce, we design, and we have those semiconductors being produced, which is obviously a big fight. You know what is happening between American and Chinese on this semiconductor war. And then we have privacy. We are one of the most serious companies in terms of privacy, of not compiling data from consumers and making that data available to third parties without the consent of that consumer. Then we have the possibility of identity management capabilities, which is essential. And maybe we're going to discuss a bit now the COVID effect and digital identities, and how we're going to be helping with our combined technology to move people outside their houses and reincorporate it into the society. And then we have artificial intelligence, and you are one of the pioneers. So I think with those assets, if we combine them and we scale them and we use companies, and this is another interesting aspect of it, is that the Industry 4 revolution in Germany, you have companies like Daimler, you have companies like BMW, you have companies that they are now building their own platforms. And those companies do not want to be subservient to any external dominant platform. They want themselves to have the tools so they can in the future compete with Amazons of the world. So I think this is a very important, and this is really justifies for me as well, or investment strategy. Now, maybe, Chris, you are very much involved in COVID. I had been working with my company since February this year to really launch initiatives. We launched initiatives with the Geneva government. We have launched initiatives at both at the software level by developing apps, but also at the microchip level by putting microchips into test devices. You are in the German steering committee that is developing the application. How can we, with the combined technologies, allow people to have an efficient way of demonstrating that they are not infectious, that they have been tested, and they can enter into hotels, into concerts, into airplanes, into any other facility without compromising the health of the others. That specific expertise will be great to discuss for a few minutes.
So, I mean, as you know, we've initiated the pan-European proximity tracing initiatives, out of which then came this whole Apple and Google protocol, which governments are using today across Europe to do contact tracing in a more digital way, at least partly. A lot of it still, unfortunately, is analog. And I think that the governments are doing what they can and what is permissible for a government, because we don't want governments to digitally own all their citizens. I mean, especially in Europe, we know that that's not a good idea. And now it's time for the economy to step up, right? Because if you have an office or a factory and people work for you, then you're responsible for these people. If you run a concert or a football game, then you're responsible for your viewers. And this is where risk management is an entire part, and applying in real time all the knowledge that is there and all the knowledge that keeps constantly expanding about COVID. And this is where it all comes together. You need identity, because you need to identify the person that you're looking at. If you're not a government, and as a government, your job is to prevent exponential spread, right? But if you are a employer, or if you are someone who has events and is running events, then you have to take responsibility for an individual, not just for not having exponential threat. And that means that you have to be able to identify that individual. You have to be able to identify everything that is handled by this individual, like a test, a ticket, a seat, and so on. All these things have to be identifiable. And then you can run risk management. You can start to manage to help people behave in a way, or get tests, or stay away from others, and whatever, that is minimizing an infection risk for an individual, not a spread risk for the entire population. And this is what we're currently doing and running studies on, the question of how can we reduce individual risks so that large events, or hotels, or cruises, or running a military force with readiness, right? Because military equipment tends to be very space constrained. All of that cannot live with the factor of social distancing, and that means that the statistical fact that you create by social distancing, you will have to overcome by risk management, so that you can live without social distancing and use data and decision-making and testing to identify people and devices in order to take down individual risks and allow people to get economic and social life, not just back as it is now, but back to capacity.
Thank you. There are some questions coming already, and this is a hot issue which is being addressed in many forums, which is what is the ethical value of AI? How can you protect AI of not being used for the wrong reason or for the wrong purposes? We know what is going on AI internationally, how those dominant companies are using AI. Is that possible to have an ethical AI process? What are you doing as Arago to ensure that your algorithms are ethical and they are not violating the basic principles of human protection on the internet?
So I'd say there's two types of actions that AIs can take, right? And if you just let an AI run wild, it'll run an optimal path, and an optimal path oftentimes is totally unethical, right? It will always steer towards survival of the fittest. It will never take care of minorities and all of these things. And this is why at the core of our algorithms, there's always two different types of actions. One is the actual normal action, and one is what we call policy, which is the same as an action, but it has a higher priority. And that means that the AI will always follow policy before it will take any other action. And this is the way how to deeply embed, because the other actions are not even looked at. The optimization algorithm does not even complete, and all AI algorithms are optimizing, does not even complete unless policy is fulfilled. So by making sure that this is deep in the DNA of the algorithm, it means that you can actually encode law, code of conduct, and also basic ethics into the AI in there. And this means that you can get around the question of will the AI behave in an optimal way that seems mathematically optimal, but is simply not what we as people want, number one. And number two, this is also a way of how to not introduce too much bias when you have a wrong data set or a data set that includes bias on minorities, on specific industries over other industries. Policies are a way to work around this. And we are firm believers that AIs need to be regulated. And with policy plus identity, the ability to actually enforce or sign policies, I think we've given that a totally safe platform. And I also like the fact that this is happening in Europe on a European basis, because these are values that are very dear to us. We would put morality and ethics before optimization, right? And I think that's it is very close to my heart, and I think generally Europe, that we have this type of an approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing applies to data privacy, applies to GDPR, EIDAS, and how all the things are slowly returning back again the control to the person and not to the platform. Yeah. So maybe we can discuss that there are some questions that we have a strong financial community registered today here. So they want to know more about business models and integration models and monetization model. So I personally believe, and maybe I can start the discussion by saying that data is the oil of the digital economy. So more data you collect, and we have the means of collecting the data because we have so many chips now outside, so many identities being issued, that at the beginning of the company, the WISeKey monetization cycle, we all obviously need to sell the data, the chips, the identities in a kind of rudimentary way. And there was not really this kind of recurrent revenue effect. Then with this razor and blade business model that we apply means you buy chips from the company and you're going to be using the chips over the period of years, and then you have to upgrade the security on the chips in a recurrent basis. It's like you will be using the razor and the blade. So the razor is the chip, and the blade is the security that you replace all the time because your blade get used. So in that second monetization model, WISeKey has made a huge progress. But now we are realizing that the big revenue is coming from data itself, because data can be monetized in so many different ways. So from your advice to companies that they are using AI, and AI is a great method of allowing companies to monetize their data, because their data becomes more intelligent, because you can do predictability analysis. What will be the business application for companies that they're going to make investment in or combine technology? How do you help them to understand why they need to make that investment, and what are going to be the benefits they're going to get from that?
I mean, to the ability to collect data, we are adding the ability to actually store and process that data and make sense out of it, and not only make predictions out of it, but actually make actions out of it. And I would always recommend, before you start predicting the future, optimize your present. And that's the business model that we're running, because normally if you start with making predictions or start with classifying problems, then you have to have a really large pre-investment into creating the data. We will allow companies to actually, while they are creating the data, while we're collecting the data that is coming in through the devices that you've deployed, Carlos, we are actually allowing them to already make money on that by automating processes that they currently run. And at the same time they run them, this builds the data space they need to actually make database decisions on. So that's the first time that they're able to build a large data space in a technology that was built for scalable data processing, while automating day-to-day business, and that which is a way of, well, making money while you create data. That's, I think, is very important. Of course, the software model for automation is a SaaS software model, so it's a subscription, and I can say that today our normal deal is like a 200,000 euro subscription on automating IT or automating a business process. Like that's the average that we can see. if you're using the data platform, then the subscriptions become way more expensive because you can create much more value out of it. And in our joint venture, we're obviously going to combine all this together, having an environment where the physical layer is kept up to date and the software layer enables to automate, and giving that on a recurring revenue subscription model.
Absolutely. So what we can conclude is that for a very, very reasonable investment, companies can optimize their data, can increase their cybersecurity, can protect their staff because they are using a strong authentication, digital identities, can protect their documents and all the material they do because they can digitally sign documents and store them in an encrypted way. So the advantages are very concrete. And plus, they can reduce and optimize the IT operations, right? I mean, you have several multinationals using already your services for optimizing IT operations. So this fee that you pay as a license fee, what is that a recurrent fee? Is something that you pay once and you just keep updating? What is the life cycle of those contracts?
So IT service management automation is a low-hanging fruit. I would say it's almost a pumpkin. It's lying fat on the floor. All you have to do is pick it up. We sell IT automation as a SaaS subscription. So it's a service run by us based on a subscription, on an annual subscription. And currently, over all the customers and different processes that we automate, we reach about 87% automation. So much higher than the automation you're achieving today in a multi-billion-dollar market like RPA, where you have only pre-prescribed execution chains. We have completely dynamic executions, no more standardization required. And this is why it does not only apply to IT automation. That's a low-hanging fruit. That's easy for everybody to start. And it's also a great data source, but also to business processes. And with the ability to identify people and devices and be able to collect data securely and put out action safely, all of this has just been expanded into the physical realm.
Absolutely, and this has been our experience. Well, in terms of more companies than they are producing objects. For instance, I'll give you an example. When we met Parrot, Parrot is well known for selling drones, but drones now are being used for very complex operations like military drones, and now you have to go and organize your own platform. So companies that they sell products before, they were happy just selling the product and the software that goes with the product. Now these companies, they are creating that platform effect, means that they want to real time know how their products are operating. So they are capturing tons of data. And all of them, they are coming back to us to say, now we have that much level of data, we would like to be able to monetize the data. So for them to pay this kind of fees is very feasible and of great interest. So how you see the future on this? What I will, I believe that in technology we are now in a similar situation we were in the Renaissance, where you had mathematics, architecture, art, all of those knowledge combined into new things. There was the platform of ideas that allows people to talk to other people. So you have experts from one sector talking to another sector and creating synergies. What are the pillars of those platform synergy? What do you need to have? Do we have, basically the question is, do you think between WISeKey, Arago, do we have the critical assets, or there is something more that needs to be added into the final architecture? Give you an idea, blockchain technology or robotics. What is your vision of what needs to be done in order to constitute really this truly European platform? And obviously, what is the type of support do you think the European Union or Germany or leading countries could provide to that effect?
I mean, I'm always skeptical about just trying to foster things from a political angle, but obviously we all would like to see European support for companies that actually implement change. Right? I mean, especially with COVID relief that is now available to companies, that would make a lot of sense to create more or change more of the credits that are now given out to these companies to cash injections if they modernize. Because I feel that the most difficult step for established economy companies is to making the change. This has all been turbocharged by COVID now, but now people need to have a reward for actually doing it. And I think that between WISeKey and Arago, we have the critical components currently set, because we're not getting into anybody's way. We're not getting into the way of a robotics company. We're not getting into the way of an IT services company. We're not getting into the way of an SAP or companies that actually run their expertise. What we do is we take the knowledge of the workforce, we make it secure. It becomes ownable IP because it is now identifiable and attributable to a person or a company. And we take that knowledge and put it into action. And that is the true automation. It really reduces the effort you need to get stuff automated. Currently, we have to run this, analyze, consolidate, standardize, and then you can make money cycle. With our combination, it's just take knowledge and apply it. And I think that is short-circuiting an entire way of implementing economy, and it becomes possible if you can have security and identity together with action.
Fully agree. Fully agree. And I think this is also the foundation to something bigger to come. You know, next year we're already working on it. In Davos, the Great Reset is going to be the main theme. You know, how can we reset the entire economy, the entire society, the entire technology? The world needs a reset. We discovered with this pandemic that we were unprepared for many things, not only to cope with the pandemic itself, but also the consequences of that pandemic in terms of labor, in terms of health, in terms of infrastructure, and so on. So I believe we have a unique opportunity to inspire the decision makers to make that great reset meaningful for the people, because the society we have been building, it has not included everybody, and there's a lot of people excluded, and they are asking to be included. So I think technology platforms like the one that you have put in place, or we have been putting in place, and other partners we have, including the big companies, because we do work with the big companies as well, we could bring all of them together to that technology great reset. Because I think I don't necessarily like the word reset, because reset is when something goes wrong and you reset and start again. I will call it the renewal, right? We have a possibility of creating a great renewal, reset and renewal. So I think your expertise is key for that. And you're going to be obviously very involved as well in the discussions in Davos. How you see it? Do you see something that in concrete terms will emerge out of this great reset?
So yes, I do. And I'm also ambivalent on the term reset, right? The point that we need to make, since we're currently there is a lot of employment, and we have a society that can make most of its participants prosper today. That is something that we want to keep, and this means that we have to help the current established economy to use their assets and use their knowledge and use their experience and use that to make the next step in automation. And this is precisely what we do. And this is why I believe that what is happening next, and with the combination of WISeKey and Arago, it really now is available not just inside the virtual realm, but in the entire economy. What is going to happen next is that we are getting beyond automation through economies of scale. We are now able to automate knowledge completely and apply it completely. This will mean that a lot of services will be produced extremely more cheaply than they are being produced today, creating either more margin or more free capital that can be applied elsewhere. And I think it will refocus people on collecting new experiences instead of just executing. I mean, for the past 70 years, I think most people were focused on executing the knowledge that they already had. I think that we are now in the area where we'll find out that it's the job of us as humans to make new experiences. It's not just fun. It also means that economies and companies and societies become more adaptable and agile. And I think this is exactly what we need right now. The ability to adapt to change is what makes a family, a society, a company survivable in these times where everything seems to be changing due to COVID and due to the resulting shaking that is going through world order at the moment.
Totally agree. Just my last question, and it's a bit about the economics of valuation and the reason why companies like Arago and WISeKey, I mean, if we will, and we are both founders, we have always this temptation to bring the company either to China or to the United States, and we will have 5 times more valuation than we have in Europe. Why in Europe we are so bad to create a scale up for companies like Arago and WISeKey? Why the financial institutions in Europe are not aggressive enough investing in those sectors? Well, those sectors are so essential. And when you are seeing now China, for instance, buying anything they find on AI, by the way, I was surprised that you are still not being acquired by a Chinese company, because they are investing everything they can into AI, because they are realizing AI and cybersecurity, they are critical assets. So why are we so laid down in Europe? Why we are not able to compete with the same weapons that others are competing in that industry?
Well, I think that it takes entrepreneurs like you to stay in Europe, right? I mean, that's any person who's purely driven on fast optimization will have to well, move out. But the long-term prospect, right, is huge, and the long-term prospect in Europe is financially much more beneficial than just the short-term growth. And I think this is why guys like you and I, who take the long view, and the people that are investing with us, who want to profit from what is coming and definitely coming, that here. But why do we not embrace this so much in Europe? It's mainly because we're afraid of failure, right? Failure is the worst thing that can happen, and you can either reduce the impact of failure by having a lot of experiments. That's what the Chinese do, or by tolerating failure and declaring failure to be experience, is what the US do. And in Europe, failure is still, if you try something and it didn't work, is not that you're smarter now and next time you'll do better, it's you screwed it up. And I think this is a lot of times why the big initiatives don't come through, and there's a stigma attached to that. And I believe that we have to just try more things. It is really important, because the level of certainty has gone down dramatically. And that goes for entrepreneurs, that goes for established companies, managers, but that also goes for investors, because in the end, these things have to be financed. And if you want the big multiples and the big cash out in the end, it also means that the risk level is reduced. And that you're not safe from risk is clearly shown by COVID, because that just changed the world upside down without any of the risk avoiding strategies being able to do anything about it.
I totally agree. So Chris, we are already on the hour. I promised the audience not to be more than 30 minutes, because people, some of them actually are on holidays and taking their time to see us. So I'd like to thank you very much for your insight. We are really proud to work with you. I think it's going to be an amazing partnership. We're going to be announcing some concrete results very soon. The joint venture is in preparation, is going to be activated very soon as well. And we're going to see the first result of our cooperation in a very practical terms very soon as well. So we are all behind you and your team, your amazing team. And would like to thank you for your confidence as well on us, that a Swiss company now is partnering with a German company in this new endeavor. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody, the audience, for their time. We look forward to have you again with us very soon in the next webinar. Thank you all. All the best. Thank you, Chris. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.